Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. This is Mr. Middlepath, and in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about Madkhalism and why this ideology is just an ideology that is based on moral cowardice, lack of empathy, lack of love for the Muslim Ummah, and one that is full of logical holes. So there's many different ways that people see this matter. I have personally dealt with Madkhalis for a very long time, many different Madkhalis of all different kinds. And I think one mistake that people make is that they conflate Salafis with Madkhalis. And first of all, what even is a Madkhali? Well, as I just said, people conflate Salafis with Madkhalis. Their Madkhalis are generally not Sufis. They do claim to be Salafis, although people who actually follow the Salaf al-Salih disavow themselves from Madkhalis. They want nothing to do with them because of their harshness and their foolishness, as well as certain innovative positions that they have. Second thing, and I think this is the thing that most people kind of pick up on, is that basically any social phenomenon that is contrary to Sharia or that is against Sharia will be defended by the Madkhalis as long as the ruler, the Arab ruler, approves of this social phenomenon or started this social phenomenon. And if you don't believe me, listen to these words.
لو أن الحاكم والملك أو رئيس الدولة أو تخيل أن للحاكم سواء كان ملكا أو رئيس دولة إلى آخره له نصف ساعة في التلفزيون يخرج على الهواء مباشرة يزني ويشرب الخمر. مش موقفنا منه؟ على الهواء مباشرة يزني ويشرب الخمر. لنفترض مش موقفنا الشرعي. إذا كنت أمامه انكر عليه ولو بصوت مرتفع ولو قدام الناس ولو أمام الناس، لكن تراعي المصلحة والمفسدة. أما إذا كنت وراءه لا تذكر اسمه ولا تنكر عليه، تنكر عليه بطريقة تحرض الناس عليه. قل وقد اشتهر الزنا وأخذ يبث في التلفاز وغيره فاتقوا الله والزنا محرم، ثم تأتي بأسلوب تدعو لولي الأمر تجعل الناس تجتمع قلوبهم عليه حتى لو كان يزني نصف ساعة كل يوم على التلفزيون.
How on earth can any scholar say something like that? That if the ruler was to do zina for half an hour on live TV, you're not allowed to talk about it. And where do we even get the principle from the Salaf al-Salih that when something evil was done by the ruler, they just were silent and didn't say anything about it? This is an innovative principle. The Sahaba clearly spoke out against that which they perceived to be an injustice or that which they perceived to be wrong. So I do want to say another thing, which is that just like how we don't want to conflate Madkhalis with Salafis, I see it a lot online. People say, oh, Salafis are like this, or Salafi bootlickers or whatever. This is not really true. There are plenty of Salafis that are in prison till this day for speaking out against the government, right? And that goes back to the social phenomenon. True scholars, when there was evil social phenomenon that the ruler did, they spoke out against it. And the Madkhalis and these other groups would say, oh, you can't do that. You can't speak out against the ruler. And when these scholars were put into prison, these good scholars were put into prison. Sheikh Abdul Aziz al-Tarifi, what did he do, for example? May Allah free him. When these scholars were put into prison, and the Muslims were rightfully concerned about this, said, how could you do this to our scholars? What did these people do? They came out and said, oh, you can't speak about this. These scholars are probably extremists anyway. They should be in prison. You don't have the right to speak out against the ruler. Consistently and constantly in defense of the ruler, putting the ruler on a godlike pedestal in which that ruler can do no wrong. And recently I've been seeing it a lot for the past few years. They've been constantly mocking Palestinian cause.
Oh, now the whole world is siding with the innocent Palestinians against the Zionist Jews.
And there's a bunch of arguments that they make. And like a broken clock can be right twice a day. So they hit on some interesting concerns, but I want to go over it one by one, inshallah. So number one is don't post pictures online or don't talk about this Palestine issue.
Therefore, let's continue to speak about this every single day, about Palestine. Palestine in the morning, Palestine in the evening, Palestine in the afternoon. Put pictures of people being bombed, put pictures of children dying, put pictures of this, and then?
This makes no sense, first of all. How on earth? So you have to understand, if the enemies of Allah are going to war, and war means more than just one thing. The battle space doesn't just mean the physical battle space. The battle space is in the mind. The battle space is media. The battle space is online. That's why Russia is using bots on Twitter to push their narrative. So clearly, pushing for a narrative is a form of warfare. When you cannot do anything and you push a narrative and you post pictures online and you talk about it and you talk about it and you make it clear what's going on. This is a form of fighting back, or of a counter narrative, a counter attack, which is not something that these people would understand because they lack honor and valor. So going back to this matter of counter narrative, yes, you post the pictures online. If the non-Muslim, if the kuffar enemies see that they can push a narrative and there's no counter narrative being pushed back, that's an easy win for them. Another thing is no protests. I do understand this point. I do understand the problem of protest and of free mixing and all the haram elements of protests. And to be honest, me personally, I think protests are cringy. That being said, though, once again, protests do add pressure on the government to take certain actions, and protests can work. If there was no one protesting in the street, what would the government think? They'd think no one has a problem with this. Therefore, let's continue and up the ante. These protests and these type of civil disobedience where people sit in or they say, we're not going to let you, do whatever it is that you're supposed to do. We have different protesters, for example, who would sit in and try and block ships from delivering weaponry to Israel. Now, if these protests are successful, let's just say the police arrest them. But those people block the ship from leaving the port for just a week. That's 1 week of Palestinians not being bombed with those weapons that are on the ship. So clearly it directly works. Direct action, right? The third thing is no boycotting. And this is a very strange position. Even many scholars who hold the position that we should not talk about the ruler because we don't want to spread fitna, which can be a reasonable position. And not everyone who says this is a Madkhali, by the way. But even the scholars who heard this were like, what are you talking about? You don't need the ruler's permission to buy the brand that you prefer. And these people, these Madkhalis will mock and mock and mock people who are boycotting with no emotional empathy and no understanding.
Cola zero, please. Oh, I'm supposed to be boycotting? Am I supposed to be boycotting in this video?
Oh, come on.
Okay.
Of course you get cola, man. I didn't even pick up on that stuff for long.
Even if we assume, and it's not the correct position that you need the ruler's permission to boycott, but even if we were to assume that it is the case, why mock? Like, even if your position is correct, why are you mocking? Right? That in and of itself is haram. It shows that you have, your heart has not been purified. May Allah purify all of our hearts. I'm not saying that any of us are perfect. But going back to the whole issue of boycott, the boycotts absolutely do work. Now let's take that back to the protest. Protests in Muslim countries pressured their Muslim governments to kick out Zionist corporations. And the Muslim governments saw, hey, this is a really low-hanging fruit. We can make our population happy. We can kick out these companies. Yeah, sure, why not? Let's do it. And they kicked them out. And these companies have been losing billions of dollars. And in addition to the boycotts that have been happening against them worldwide. So clearly, these boycotts are working. They do work, right? Which leads me back to this whole issue of what are these guys going on about? Now, the fourth thing, and this is something that they talk about a lot, the Palestinian fighters are allied with Iran. Okay, and the Iranians have killed many Muslim Sunnis, and Sunni Muslim blood is on their hands. Yes, it's true. Bashar al-Assad has killed countless Sunni Muslims. Hezbollah has killed countless Sunni Muslims, and as well, they are importing Shiites from Afghanistan to do some type of demographic engineering of the population, so that if the population in Syria, for example, is more Shia or have a higher percent of Shias, then it's going to be easier for Iran or a group that Iran approves of to govern the area. Yeah, this is true. So then if that's the case, why aren't you saying the same thing about Saudi Arabia, for example? Saudi Arabia has recently invited Bashar al-Assad to Saudi Arabia, and they're doing joint military exercises with Iran, or they have announced that they will do so. And if we're talking about BRICS and joining BRICS, that requires a close collaboration with Iran. So clearly Saudi Arabia is moving in that direction. I don't hear anyone talking about that. No, what they'll say is it's allowed for the Muslim ruler to make a deal or an agreement with whoever he wants. This is absolutely true. But then why are you denying the same thing for the Palestinians? Next, and this is the thing that I think I agree with the most actually, but the way that they apply it is incorrect as well. They say that the Palestinian cause, the Palestinian movement, has a lot of errors in which they praise people who are not Muslim and even give them the rank of shaheed, which you're not allowed to do. So for example, if a prominent Hezbollah figure who has Muslim blood on his hands and has killed a lot of Sunni Muslims is dead, they call them a shaheed. A lot of people came out and said, oh, he's a shaheed. He's not even Muslim, bro. You can't say it's a shaheed. And then Shireen Abu Akleh, the journalist, who did a lot of great work. But when she was killed by Israel, people came out and said she's a shaheed, even though, again, she's not a Muslim. She can't be an Islamic martyr if she's not a Muslim to begin with. So that doesn't make sense, guys. Put everything in its proper place. Wisdom is that you put the thing in its proper place. أن تضع الشيء في مكانه, right? Or أن تضع الشيء في موضعه, more correctly. So if wisdom is putting everything in its proper place, they're not doing the same thing for the Palestinians. We cannot blame them. They're in a very desperate position. They're taking weapons and help. They can't just, while they're taking weapons and help, say, F you, Iran, we don't care about you, and F all of your Hezbollah people and all of these people who just gave us weapons 2 seconds ago. They're doing what they can to survive, and they've accepted weapons and help from someone that they tried not to, by the way, during the early parts of the Syrian revolution. Hamas and at least Hamas, I know for a fact, tried to shift away from Iran, but it didn't work out. Right? Because they didn't get as much support as they needed from the other Sunni Muslim governments. Now, going back to all of this, I want to give you guys an example here, because this ideology that they have is very dangerous. And it's not just the Madkhalis that do this. There are other groups that are Sufis that do this as well, that attach themselves to the government, protect the government from any type of criticism, and anyone who criticizes the government is labeled Ahl al-Bid'ah and an extremist, and then the government will throw them in prison. So it's not just one group that call themselves Salafis that have this behavior. This behavior has always happened ever since the Muslim Ummah has had kings. Ever since the Muslim Ummah has had kings, you've always had a group of people that were like this, that would run interference and cover for the ruler, no matter any egregious crime that the ruler did, and that they would attack their Muslim brothers and sisters and kind of do a divide and conquer thing, make things easy for the Muslim ruler to kind of get away with whatever they wanted to get away with, knowingly or unknowingly, even if they think this is the correct Sunnah position. So going back to the Iran thing, the correct thing to do is to tell everyone that is not in Palestine, say, hey, these are incorrect positions. However, these people in Palestine can't be judged for that because of their desperate situation. They have to do what they can to survive. But for us as Muslims, we should be aware that this is not the correct Aqidah position, for example, or this is not the correct Aqidah position, for example. That would be a much better way of going about things than to mock them.
And you're like, what is God?
Right? Honestly, it's disgusting the way that they mock them. And people are dying literally day in and day out. And then they say, oh, well, if you believe it's a legitimate jihad, then go fight yourself. But then when those people who are in Palestine are fighting for their lives, they're saying, oh, look at this niqabi, look at this guy who's aduwullah, praising Iran.
And then you have Abu Ubaidah, the niqabi, and Hamas, Allah, al-Shaheed, رحمه الله تعالى الإمام الخميني يا عدو الله يا عدو الله, the one with no tawheed and no aqidah and no regard for the Prophet ﷺ honor.
And they take it to an extreme, because even the idea of wearing the kufayya to cover your face, they do this so that if Israel gets their identity, they'll kill their families. So clearly they have to cover their face and be anonymous. I mean, this is common sense, but then they make fun of them and call them a niqabi. So these people, they have no leg to stand on. They have no honor. They have no courage. They have no valor. Really, they have no concept of such things. Right? I want to end off with like a scenario so that we can all imagine the scenario in our minds. Imagine that you live in a country and there's a evil dictator who his soldiers or his police force can kind of do whatever they want. They roam the city, they do whatever they want. And one day they knock on your door, or they break open your door, and they're about to take your woman and have their way with them and maybe even kill you or kill them. The mind says, oh, there's nothing I can do about it because, you know, the state, and they're coming from the state power, and they have all the power of the state government behind them, and they're the police, and what can I do about it? Or they're the Muslim, what can I do about it? But the heart says, I must do something. I have to fight them back. I can't let them do this, even if I'm going to die. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, these people coming out with these arguments, these Madkhalis and these other groups that are like them will come out and denigrate people fighting for their lives and saying, you can't fight for your life until you correct your aqidah. You can't fight for your life until you correct the condition within your heart. You can't fight for your life until you are only united upon good and everyone is at the masjid. So basically, you cannot fight back and defend yourself unless you have the perfect condition. But the perfect condition is unachievable because it's perfect. When have humanity ever united on something? Even the Muslims, we've had our differences, we have our different tariqas, we have our different madhabs, we have our different aqidas. You can't just change human nature and make them all one like that. It's impossible. So by telling everyone that you cannot defend yourself until the conditions are perfect, is to tell everyone that you cannot defend yourself at all. You see how that works? At the same time, there is a difference between making a short-term alliance with someone who you don't agree with versus saying that this person is a shaheed or he is Ahlus Sunnah, even if he's a Shia and he's not Ahlus Sunnah. Like, we cannot just bend the truth because our brothers and sisters are dying. But at the same time, we have to understand that there's a difference between that which what we believe in and that which what is correct and true versus the realities on the ground that we have to deal with on the day-to-day and in the moment. These are two separate things. And this is also a common sense position. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all this common sense and wisdom. And I would like to end by hearing the words of this scholar. Assalamu alaikum.
والله أسمع أصواتا وأسمع كلاما هذه الأيام كأن الذين يتكلمون يعني يلينون الجانب مع يهود ويغلظون الكلام غلظة شديدة على من هم مسلمون، وهذا من أعجب غير. هذا لو كان قديما لحكموا بعدتهم، لكن للأسف اليوم الأمور يرضى ويرضى. كره للحزبيين كره شرعي، وينبغي أن نعرف حدوده، وينبغي أن نعرف متى نكون معهم ومتى نكون ضدهم، وأن يكون كرهنا كرها مأخوذا من القرآن ومن السنة، وأن نحقق فيه الولاء للمؤمنين. كل من قال لا إله إلا الله له علينا له ولاية،